Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where we give you all of the latest gaming news. And we got a major leak to talk about today. Yeah, this is another Nintendo Switch leak, and there's some exciting stuff within this leak, including that Nintendo originally planned for the Switch to play 3DS games. Yeah, this was a thing, so we're gonna go over all of that and much more today. I mean, this leak is massive, and there's a lot to go over. We have plenty of other things to cover though, including another holiday sale that you're definitely going to want to go check out. One of Banjo Kazooie's creators believes Smash may have saved Banjo, Xbox has some nice free games, and more, so stay tuned for all that. First though, I want to talk about the PlayStation 5. I think the PS5 so far has been a phenomenal console thanks to its strong library of launch games. It's a fast console, the graphics look great, it's got great games, and it's an overall great platform. However, as with any launch console, there's always going to be some issues that needs to be ironed out. Well, luckily, one of those issues has seemingly been fixed. So this was kind of a weird problem, but last month players were playing through Call of Duty Cold War, and some were wondering, why does this game not look better on the PS5? That was because several users were actually playing the PS4 version on their PS5 without knowing it. See, if you bought the Call of Duty cross-generation bundle and downloaded it all, you may have ended up downloading both the PS4 and PS5 version. And if you didn't know beforehand, there is a good chance from that point forward you might have been unintentionally playing the PS4 version all along. Yeah, that's not a great introduction to the PS5, but it seems like Sony has now fixed the problem. Now when you boot up your game, you'll get a warning if you're playing the PS4 version, and then be prompted to switch over to the PS5. That's a nice little update, and it's interesting because some people may have never even known that they were playing the PS4 version until this update. Not everybody follows the news, so they may not have realized this was an issue in the first place. And speaking of nice updates, Flight Simulator got a virtual reality update today. Now this is one of the best games of 2020. It doesn't get talked about near as much as it probably should, but it's a great game, especially if you like airplanes or you just want to learn how to fly them. I mean, it looks photorealistic at times, and if you have a nice flight stick, you might be able to learn how to fly an airplane. And that's the thing. I think Flight Simulator in VR is an absolute perfect match. I'm going to have to test this out myself, but if this is done right, this will not only be an incredibly immersive experience, but it might end up being one of the best VR games overall, period. I'll probably test it out soon myself, but I'm curious to see other people's reactions to this. Actually, if you checked it out yourself, let me know your thoughts on this VR update. Now, Xbox also revealed the Xbox Games with Gold January lineup, and I've been a little critical on some of their most recent months. While Xbox Game Pass is amazing month in, month out, clearly Xbox Games with Gold has taken a bit of a backseat, and it really shows. With that said, January is actually a pretty solid month, so let's check it out. Little Nightmares, Dead Rising, King of Fighters 13, and Breakdown are all coming to Xbox Games with Gold in January. Yeah, right away, Little Nightmares is a great addition, and it already makes this a better month than their most recent efforts. It's a really good independent horror game, and fans definitely need to check that one out. Now, Dead Rising and King of Fighters are also some nice games to have included here. King of Fighters, of course, is a legendary fighting game franchise, and it's aged well considering its art style and strong fighting mechanics. As for Dead Rising, I'm not sure if it's aged as well, but it's definitely a good game. Now, I haven't played Breakdown before, so I can't say much about that one, but overall this is a much better month than what we've been fed for quite a while. Hopefully they can continue with this momentum going forward. Next up, let's talk about Banjo Kazooie. Banjo Kazooie holds a very special place in my heart. This is one of my all-time favorite games, and I actually have a big first four-figure statue of Banjo right next to me as we speak. Yeah, I've been pretty adamant that Xbox needs to bring back Banjo, and you've probably heard me talk about it several times on this channel. It's just baffling to me that they have yet to do this. I'm not saying that they need to make a third game that isn't nuts and bolts, though I would like a third game. But at the very least, they could do a remake of the first two games similar to how Activision revived Crash Bandicoot. I mean, remakes are a big thing now, and we've already gotten a remake of both Crash and Spyro, so it just seems like the perfect time for Xbox to do something with the Banjo Kazooie IP. And hey, if they do end up making remakes and they sell well, then maybe you can think about making a third like Activision did with Crash 4. I know Crash 4 didn't sell as well as the Insane Trilogy, but a lot of that was because of the price. I don't really know what Activision was thinking there, but Microsoft also has Xbox Game Pass, and that can kind of get around that price barrier too. I think this would be such a big move paired with Xbox Game Pass. I believe it could get Nintendo fans in specific to jump over to Xbox, whether that be with a new console or simply subscribing to Xbox Game Pass on PC, mobile, or wherever. It's just such a missed opportunity as of this moment for Microsoft, but why are we even talking about Banjo today in the first place? Well, one of the original creators of Banjo, Steve Mells, posted a really interesting tweet, and let's check out what he had to say. When we were working on Banjo Tooie, a certain game was released that involved Nintendo characters duking it out. 20 years later, it could well be the game that saved Banjo Kazooie. What will next year bring for Bear and Bird? Now, it's important to note here that he is not saying that there is a new Banjo Kazooie in development, so don't take this tweet that way. Steve Mells no longer works with Rare. He now works with Playtonic while his brother Greg Mells works at Rare, but he does seem to believe that Smash Bros. May end up saving Banjo at the same time. This is because suddenly millions of people have been introduced to the Bear and the Bird through Smash Bros., and this does renew interest in not only old fans, but new as well. Smash has always been a great game to advertise games, so theoretically it is possible that Xbox is looking at that success and reaction from fans online, and they might be thinking, yeah, it's time to bring Banjo back. I can really only hope by this point. I mentioned Greg Mells before, and he doesn't seem to want to make a new Banjo Kazooie unless they think of a new idea. That kind of takes me back to what I originally said though. Just do a remake of the first two games. Xbox here recently have been licensing Rare games to other studios. We've seen it with Killer Instinct, Battletoads, and now Perfect Dark. So if Rare isn't willing to do it, find somebody that will, because this game absolutely needs to return. Banjo Kazooie being in Smash Bros. Might have gotten the ball rolling, as we've seen fans go ballistic over their inclusion, and hopefully Xbox sees this and decides to act upon it, because again, this game needs to come back. Let's talk about Nintendo though, because there was another major leak that has been making the rounds online. This once again seems to be linked to that data breach that happened earlier this year. A lot of stuff keeps coming from that leak, as we saw Luigi in Super Mario 64, and then there was a lot of source code for several different games, but I think this particular leak is the most interesting that's come from it so far. That's because this deals with a lot of Nintendo's original plans for the Nintendo Switch, and this is some crazy stuff. So do you remember back when the Switch was codenamed the Nintendo NX? Yeah, back then there was a supposed Switch prototype that leaked online where the soon-to-be Switch had like this football-shaped screen and just two analog sticks. It's an intriguing design to say the least for several different reasons. At the time though, people were going insane over that leak and whether or not it was real. Ultimately, I believe it ended up being a fake, but it does seem like early Nintendo NX prototypes were going to go with that design, as shown in this leak today. This was an actual thing, so there was some truth to that leak years ago. Thankfully though, it didn't happen, because I think the Switch would have been a failure if they would have went with a design like this. I mean, it doesn't even have buttons, so it would have been a touchscreen device, and we all know how hardcore gamers love touchscreen devices. They also were originally planning to make the Switch a 480p machine. Of course, the Switch ended up being a 720p device, but even then, fans still aren't universally happy about that. A lot of fans are really hoping those Nintendo Switch Pro rumors are true, where we can get a 1080p screen and maybe even 4K resolution in docked mode. I do think there will be a Switch quote-unquote Pro soon. I'm not going to guess to its features, but I think it will happen at some point. Either way, thankfully, Nintendo decided against 480p resolution. I think that would have made the Switch feel much more dated right out of the gate, really. I mean, if you start to look at this leak closely though, it almost seems like they were treating the Nintendo Switch as a 3DS successor, and in fact, that's the most interesting part about this leak. Nintendo was originally planning to have the Switch support 3D and 3DS backwards compatibility. It was also going to include Street Pass, Spot Pass, and pedometer features similar to the 3DS. Now, I don't really care about those features per se, but I really like the idea of having 3DS backwards compatibility. The 3DS has a great library of games that would look fantastic on the Switch. The problem with 3DS backwards compatibility, though, is with how the Switch looks now today. It only has that one screen, whereas the 3DS had two. Now, it does seem like they toyed around with the idea of making the Switch dual screen, but because they didn't, that's probably why they scrapped the idea of having 3DS backwards compatibility. That second screen is necessary in several games for the 3DS, And I imagine you would have to change games and how they fundamentally work in order to put them on a one-screen device, unless you're just going to split the screen up, which I don't think is ideal. Still, I would have loved to seen them do something to get 3DS backwards compatibility. I've actually been playing my 3DS and Game Boy Advance here recently for that matter. I've always had a soft spot for handheld games. One other interesting part to this leak though is that they were originally planning to use Miracast in order to play the Switch on your TV. That means you would have connected to your TV wirelessly instead of using a dock. Of course, the dock is going to be a better overall experience, so once again, Nintendo made the right choice here. It's kind of interesting looking back at this though and seeing how Nintendo evolved their plans as years went on. We as consumers don't always see what happened behind the scenes, and with this leak, you can see how ideas change over time. All of these concepts eventually were improved on, and now the Switch is quickly becoming one of the most successful consoles ever made, and that is in large part because of the design they went with for the Switch. That hybrid design is just absolutely brilliant. I mean, yeah, I would have liked 3DS backwards compatibility, but overall, the Switch is an amazing device. On to our final topic of the day though, we got some more holiday sales to talk about. Yesterday we talked about the Xbox and Nintendo eShop sale, but today the PlayStation Store and Steam's winter sale goes live, and there are some great games here. So let's take a look at some of the better games you can pick up right now on PlayStation. Ghost of Tsushima is currently $40, and that's a great buy. I keep saying it, but it's essentially a PlayStation 5 game with boosted mode. Also, Final Fantasy VII Remake is just $30, and that's one of my favorite games this year. Persona 5 Royal is also $30, Doom Eternal is $20, The Last of Us Part 2 is $30, and then there are some new games here as well. Immortals Phoenix Rising is $40, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is $45, and Yakuza Like a Dragon is also $45. I would strongly recommend Yakuza, but yeah, there's a lot of games here to check out, and you can go do that right now. Also for you PC fans, Steam Winter Sale is always huge, so definitely go check that out. I was kind of skimming through it, and you have games like Half-Life Alyx, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Horizon Zero Dawn, Hades, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Spiritfarer, Control Ultimate Edition, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and so many more are on sale. Steam has always done an exceptional job with this type of stuff. The only problem I run into on Steam is that because they have so many great deals, I end up buying games that sits in my backlog for years at a time. Nonetheless, let me know what games you grab, whether it be on PlayStation, the Switch, Xbox, or on PC. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.